how to use SparkMax coding.
I am a teacher here at WTMC. I teach math and sometimes physics. I'm also the advisor, kind of like one of the lead advisors for the robotics team here.
I have been a teacher going on 9 years now. That entire time I've been teaching mechatronics, which is the fancy term for robotics, basically. This year will make 20 years of me having participated in FIRST Robotics. I'm a giant nerd. I have a Star Wars problem.
I started getting into robotics in elementary school. I was a founding member of my team's Lego robotics team, which is the elementary school version of what we do now.
I'm Colby Freeman. I'm your mechanics leader. I am the master of ducks.
I'm Keegan, a business mentor. I was director of business on the robotics team for a while. I'm really interested in the robotic advancements regarding people's prosthetics, the ways that neural interfaces work to control prosthetics using nerve signals. It's really interesting to me.
FIRST Robotics was designed to get students interested in STEM.
Via making robots and competing them and hopefully winning.
Every year in January, we have kickoff, which is where we find out what the competition is going to be that year. It's a lot of picking objects up and putting them places in general, but there's variations on that. Last year, we also had to have our robot go onto a ramp without us controlling it.
There had been a team here, a robotics team here before I was here, and when I got here, at the same time, there was all of this like renewed enthusiasm around getting teams started, which meant they were giving money to schools to start teams. And so when Dr. Covert saw that there was this $12,000 grant that was just out there for the taking, he came to me and was like, "Hey, Tuttle, you've done some engineering. You've always wanted to start a robotics team, haven't you?" And I said, "Not really." And he said, "Well, okay, great. So go ahead and do it." So the season technically starts at kickoff, right? But of course, there's a lot of work that needs to go in before kickoff, and we did none of that. Like, I literally was emailing base advisors in late December, trying to figure out if there was any students interested in FIRST Robotics. We got our kit of parts. We didn't know what to do with any of it. We had some ideas about maybe what to do, but we didn't know how to put any of it together. We didn't have people like Sean. We didn't have a lot of parent involvement.
One of the other instructors in our department here at Washtenaw basically had started to work with Mr. Tuttle to help out, and was like, these guys have no idea what they're doing. They have a robot with a sheet of plywood on it with stuff randomly zip tied to it. They need someone who's dealt with FIRST Robotics before. Help. So I came in 3 weeks into build season, looked at the robot. The students started telling me all these grand ideas they had, and I was like, yeah, the answer is no. We're going to start with making a robot that drives around and go from there.
I think since it was so difficult in that first year, the friendships that grew in that first season were really strong, and that translated into good teamwork and getting a really good robot put together. We won that competition at Pioneer, that we've got that banner, right? And that was enough to get us to the state competition, right? But that was even kind of an unknown thing, because we have to find a way for 20 students to stay the night in Saginaw. It was a super fun weekend. I mean, I'll never forget that experience.
The biggest challenge I have noticed is communication. They've never had to work in a large group before. They've worked in groups for class projects, but it's 2, 3, 4 students maximum. All of a sudden, they're working in a team of 20, 30 students, and they have no idea how to deal with that.
we don't have a lot of time to build the robot. So it needs to be decided early on so that we can finalize the designs and then actually build it and figure out how it's going to work.
The main issue with the business unit was probably the fact that there was no one on it.
You know, having those older students who've spent the last 2 or 3 years kind of learning and maturing and growing, having them be able to teach the younger students, we didn't really have that last year. So that was the challenge, right? The challenge was, well, I don't feel like we should be a new team because we've been around for 8 years, but we were a new team.
My favorite part of being on the team is probably the people. Everyone here is great.
Mark is great. He thinks he's right all the time. He's usually correct about that. It's very entertaining.
My favorite part of being on the teams is primarily just watching these students that come in as a freshman.
They don't really know anything. They're tentative around sharing their ideas, or they just don't know how to.
They're trying this thing out because robots are cool, and watching them go through and learn about the robotics.
And then seeing them 3 or 4 years later actually facilitating groups of 9th graders, like learning the same stuff that they didn't know 4 years ago. Building the robot is great, but building this young adult, right, is even more satisfying and rewarding.
I just like robots. I don't know.
It's weird to call it relaxing to come here twice a week and, help build a robot with everyone, but it is. It's just a good place to unwind.
Even when it's not good, people will be like, Mr. Tuttle, like, what do you, I'll be like, oh, this is great. And then they'll be like, no, this is terrible. I'll be like, no, this is great. Like, we're learning so much, right? So I think we're going to learn a lot, and in terms of like, how is our robot going to do? It's like, I don't know, like, that's almost like the last thing that I'm worried about. I don't know if that sounds bad, but like, I'm an optimist, I think, when it comes to this sort of stuff. Whether the robot does what it's supposed to do or not, I always feel like this is going to be the best year ever.